Well, let's go now with him, all right? Here we go. BP Earthwatch, welcome live with us tonight. BP Earthwatch, how you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing fine, Paul. Do you have can you hear me okay?
I hear you, but you're cutting in and out like a little bit garbled. Are you going through
Okay, let me see if I can change it. If this doesn't work, I'm on Skype. I will call on my phone. I'm in my studio, so I was going to try to do this.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
it's messed up, I'll call on the phone.
Yeah, it's pretty bad sound.
It's messing up.
Yeah, it's a bad sound.
Okay, I'm going to call on my phone.
Okay. Call right back.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Now, we still have the time.
All right, BP, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Is that any better,
Okay,
Paul?
that's perfect. That's beautiful. Yes.
Okay.
Jesse, great to have you tonight. It's been it's such a blessing to have you. We're so excited about talking to you tonight. And I did watch your video you did earlier at your YouTube channel, folks, and that's BP Earthwatch. If you go to his YouTube channel, and here's his website, bpearthwatch.com, which is a phenomenal website, to be honest with you. But great to have you here. I'm so glad you're also going to be part of our webinar that's coming. Mike from around the world called your name along with Gil Brazard and said, you got to get those two guys. You want to throw some more people at it, fine. But get those two guys. We got to talk about the effects of Planet X, or what we've titled this webinar, Planet X, What's Next, okay? So it's great to have you on the broadcast tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the invite.
BP, let's talk about your video today. I think it's drastic changes of the Earth's magnetic field. And I was showing the audience, let me just grab that graphic right now this is your graphic that you put out on your YouTube channel. This is drastic because that's 2022, and that's 2023. And man, I don't know which one's normal, if either one. So talk us through what in the world we're looking at here.
Well, Paul, what you're looking at is the effects of the changes in the magnetic field. This is actually the Arctic vortex, and I think it's being controlled. See the auroras coming in from solar winds. We're seeing a change in the Arctic vortex, and that's what you're seeing. The one behind you, it's a circle, is more normal. That's 22, but the one in 2023 over your left shoulder is very abnormal. Like you said, it's not coming down into the United States like it normally does in the winter. That's the abnormal. And there's a fellow called that I saw his video yesterday from Saskatchewan, Canada, called Canadian Prepper. And it was standing outside 45 degrees, no snow, when he said it should be minus 45.
Wow!
With snow. And so when I did the video this morning, people from Minnesota, all through that area said same thing. It's too warm. Some people were in shorts, no snow in the snow area. So, and I think that's going to end up affecting a lot of crops.
Now,
different things.
You know what's wild about that? You're saying that up in Canada, it's 45 degrees, and people walk around in shorts because they're not used to that kind of warm temperatures at this time of year. Yet this next day or two down south, there's going to be snow in Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. So what in the world? I mean, is this the effects of this? You think so?
I think it is, Paul. I mentioned that I'm not sure exactly what's causing it. I think it has to do with our magnetic fields changing, and it may be a combination of lava flow beneath the surface of the planet, because your magnetic fields are affected by both of those. Also, another effect could be an incoming object.
Okay.
Now, what that is, I don't know. We've all talked about Planet X, and it was Planet 9 to begin with years ago.
Yep.
7 years ago, it was getting to be a big topic. But what I know about that is, and let me stop for a moment. You said what an exciting day and how things are accelerating.
Yep.
I had not long ago, about an hour and a half ago, finished a hour and a half call-in broadcast Leak Project.
Okay, yeah,
And it was
with
about the
our good
similar.
buddy Rex Bear.
That's
Yeah.
right. And it will go up tonight after your show.
Okay.
But anyway, what happened was the same exact subject we're talking about now, except our friend Martin Malava called in. He's a Hopi elder,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him about what I had seen and the effects that we had talked about with comets coming in, the solar flares and things like that. And he pulled out a chart that he drew 7 years ago, Paul. And the chart was handed down through the elders from, say, every 20 years or so, they would have a meeting. They would not only talk about their prophecies, but they would talk about new dreams that their prophets were having. So 7 years ago, they got together and they tell stories about it in their prophecy.
You're talking the Hopi Indians now, the Hopi prophecy. Okay, go ahead.
That's right, in Arizona, and Martin lives just outside of Phoenix. But anyway, he had gotten the information from the other Hopis, and he showed us the diagram. You'll see it on that video if you get a chance to see it.
Okay, I will.
That they drew it down. It was the sun and our Earth, and there was an object. This is old. He originally got the information in 1968. 7 years ago, they renewed it, added the new prophecies, and his diagram's color diagram of the sun, the Earth, and an object coming around the sun, then diving towards the Earth, looping all the way around the Earth, and because of its path, headed back to the sun one more time and coming back around the Earth twice before it moves back into what they call deep space. And he showed the petroglyphs of it also, of this event. And I've seen a lot of petroglyphs going to out into Phoenix to see my grandkids up around White Tank. Some of you folks out there know where that's at. Anyway, and he talked about it. And I was telling them about when you and I and Paul were watching Comet ISON and the gravitational effects that were happening and the change in the magnetic field.
Yes.
And I said, if y'all remember that as Comet ISON was coming in, the sun was continually throwing out huge CMEs and solar flares, and we watched it tear the tail off of ISON many times. Remember that?
I do remember.
Just rip the tail. Okay.
Yes.
And so he said it's amazing because that is exactly what the Hopis are talking about. He said, and when this thing comes around the sun, it's going to be so close that the sun's going to be kicking out tremendous coronal mass ejections at it, even as it comes around our planet. And as it approaches our planet, the gravity is going to change on here. He said it will not be nearly as strong as it is. It's going to be being pulled away. And in their prophecy, pieces of the earth will be torn apart and pulled into our upper atmosphere as this thing pulls around.
Whoa!
The first time and the second time.
Now,
and I thought, my God, how's all this coming together in one day?
Well, yeah.
What you're seeing behind you, then I had no idea he had that information. And now you and Mike, wow.
You know, BP, I appreciate what you're saying because the Hopi Indians have had significant prophecies that have come to pass. And even some of their prophecies link, and they didn't have a Bible, so they didn't have any idea what the biblical text was, yet some of their prophecies matched biblical.
Yeah, they used petroglyphs.
Right, exactly. And Rex Bear is what a great guy he is, and I know he's been on top of that. Matter of fact, I just said tonight we're going to add one more speaker. You won't believe this, but Heidi said we need to add Rex Bear. And I said, okay, add Rex. And so here you come in here and confirm that. That shows you how the Lord's working. But let me ask you a question, because when you say the gravity will lift and tear stuff out of the earth and just go, what happens to the people then? I mean, anything that's loose.
Yeah. Well, Paul, do you remember that in November 28th, 2013, when we watched ISON come in and loop around the sun, and of course it didn't hit. People thought it would, but we saw what I had a name for what happened at that point, and I called it a gravitational slip or a gravitational eclipse. In other words, the magnetic poles of our planet on that day, November 28th, 2013, pulled to the left. It had a sudden 90-degree turn to the left, very hard.
Yep.
And I think it was because the sun's reaction to ISON and it was putting so much energy into trying to tear that comet apart. Because remember, the scientists thought it would hit the sun.
Yep. I
And
remember you and we covered this a lot, the comet ISON. You and I talked about it a lot. I got a lot of heat from people in the media. I remember, I don't know, it was the tabloids in the UK, I think. And they were saying, Begley's saying that, the ISON is a sign from the Bible, it's a prophetic sign. But I remember what you said. We watched it carefully, and at some point, as it did its perihelion, the nucleus exploded into parts. Do you remember that? I mean, the sun did this to it? I think, and
yes,
you said this might have spared the Earth in some way.
And if the size of that comet, and it was what was surprising to me is the scientists were saying that it could hit the sun. And if it had, Paul, it would have been over. It was so big. The explosions on the sun would have put keel shots out into the inner solar system.
I didn't know that.
By me studying, I was looking at the exact JPL coordinates. And I was saying, no, this thing's going to slightly miss it. But I was picking up multiple nuclei. Remember that? It wasn't one nucleus. And I said, it's already splitting apart. As it was coming in at 1 million miles a day, I said, this thing is breaking apart, and I don't think it's going to hit the sun. And then it went dark behind the sun, and then earlier, maybe it was after midnight, I can't remember, we saw a 40 million mile span of that thing breaking apart like a big triangle. It didn't hit the sun, but it was put into 1 million pieces, which we will one day call the ISON meteor shower. But it was going back out into the Oort cloud, but a lot of that debris was not pulled out with ISON. A lot of it was pulled back into an inner solar orbit, just like because the strength of the sun was so intense. But it caused the gravitational slip at that time. And I think that's what we're see again. That's why there will be objects floating off the Earth. It could also affect the equatorial bulge, but I'm not sure yet. You've heard about that. I've heard Mike talk about it also.
Yeah.
The ocean's 400 foot higher along the equator because of centrifugal force.
Yeah.
And if you start changing that radically, or if something inside the Earth stops rotating because of heavy changes in a magnetic field, and that flips, then that equatorial bulge could be affected. And when you're at sea level in Florida, you've got a 400-foot equatorial bulge collapsing both northward and southward from the equator, there's going to be problems with that. It won't be just a tidal wave, it will be a permanent.
Just the water will rise, right? And the water will just rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, keep on going. That's sort of like that Navy map, that John Moore originally showed us, and then later Mike Around the World actually showed us that again. I know you've seen it. And do you agree with Mike's analogy that when this event happens, this water, he keeps calling it a water event, and it's not a tsunami, but it's just a raising of the overall amount of water and where it settles. You agree with that? That's coming.
I don't know when, but that's exactly what would happen.
Okay.
Because you got that water's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But and if we look at it biblically, Paul, whatever comes in, like I said, he showed in his drawings from the Hopis, the object coming around the sun and all. Now, could it possibly be bringing other objects with it? Could it possibly go through our asteroid belt on the way in? Because there's two verses in the Bible. One's Old Testament, it's Job 38.
Yep.
And the New Testament, Revelation 16.
Yes.
God talks about hailstones, the weight of a talent. Now,
Yes.
during the Hebrew time, they were using I think, Babylonian talent, which was about 65 pounds.
Okay.
But when John was getting info on the island of Patmos about the talent, their talents was 129.6 pounds,
Whoa.
one each rock. And so
129.6
6 pounds is
pounds.
one talent in the New Testament measurement. If when Mike comes on, he may correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. Anyway,
That's
so
outrageous. I mean, well,
yeah,
65 or whatever you said earlier is bad.
that's
That's
bad
bad
enough, right?
enough. I mean, this
Now, what
is
happened? What did God tell Job? He told him that after 36 chapters of people coming telling Job, supposedly his friends,
yeah.
how down and out he was, beating him down. It's all your fault, Job. God steps in, chapter 38, says, hold on a minute, Job.
Yep.
Quit listening to these fools, because you don't know what you think you know. Were you there when I created the earth? When I did this, when I did that?
Right.
Do you know of my treasure of hail that I have saved for the day of battle, on the great day of the Lord?
Amen.
That's right, right?
Yeah, that's
So
exactly right.
that's right. Now we're talking, if you're talking about hailstones at 129 pounds, it'll be very drastic. It sounds like a meteorite shower that's going to hit the earth, and you won't see them coming until they glow into the atmosphere. It's not like a comet. And then in Revelation 16, they talk about the same thing, the
You know,
hailstones.
okay, now it does. You're exactly right. Revelation 16, it talks about these huge hailstones. It's the weight of a talent. As you're saying, it was 129.6 pounds back in that
Right,
time.
right.
And then we have Revelation 8, talks about, looks like two deep impacts. Maybe one is an asteroid that hits the ocean. There's another big rock. It's called Wormwood. It's a star from heaven, and it apparently hits the earth ground, but it brings so much radiation it pollutes and poisons the water. I'm just asking, you think those are two separate events, the hailstones and the two big impacts, or could that all be in the same category or be in the same arena? I don't know. I mean, I personally don't know. I just wondered what you thought.
What and I may be wrong, Paul, but what I think is one event where there's a star that falls from heaven, and then he was given the
Yeah.
key, right? And so I
Yes.
think
Yeah,
that
that's
would be one
Revelation
of the
9.
stars. That's right, one of the stars, a bit like the morning stars that sang together in the beginning. And then the second part is when the stars fell like untimely figs.
Yes.
And untimely means not ripe yet.
Right.
So instead of the fall, when they normally are ripened, it would be a summer fig.
Yeah.
And I think that could possibly be that event. But the one where it's a singular star, I think that's
A
um,
separate event.
a separate event with, and it says, and he, that star, and he was given. But when you got the other event, I think it's possibly the hail that
Okay.
God has promised that he has in store for that
Yeah.
great battle.
Well, and you know, folks, to BP Earthwatch is with. There you see, there's his website, www.bpearthwatch.com. Now, I highly recommend that before you go to bed tonight, that you click on that. If you're watching right now, open another tab and just click on his website, because it's such a comprehensive website. He shows you so many different things, and links that will take you to different graphs, explanations. He has videos where he keeps things up to date for you. Plus, he has a lot of good products that he has available. So just check that out, because I think that you'll find his information. I know all the many years that I've known Jesse, he has always been on top of what's going on in the heavens, what's going on, with the events taking place, and how it affects the sun and how it affects the earth. And can you find some parallels or explanations for some of it in the Bible? And so Jesse's been very good at pulling these things together, I can certainly say for sure. And so I'm interested in seeing this latest interview you did with Rex Bear over at Leak Project, and the Hopi Prophecy tied in with that. I'm looking really looking forward to watching that.
I
So,
think it'll be good, Paul.
yeah,
Look, let me say one other thing
go ahead.
about this, and it was brought up today with my friend Martin Malava, the Hopi elder, and Rex had asked him, have the Hopis ever seen this in the past? This coming around the sun, and he said, no, it's not in our history, but we always are looking forward. And so they
Okay.
asked me, and I said, it has happened before. And it was 12,000 years ago, and I think this is a cycle event. And the Algonquin Indians, Paul, they recorded the event 12,000 years ago. Some of them survived.
Wow.
They watched it, and I've done videos about it over the last 10 or 12 years called the Carolina Bays. And it's they're showing these millions of lakes throughout the Carolinas and really scattered out through the nation were caused by meteorite impacts. The Carolina Bays, it's all been discovered by the LIDAR radar, where they can come over with a plane, look at the ground penetrating radar, and show these. But what happened, the Algonquin Indians, which were really, they covered, I think, the East Coast from Canada down to South Carolina. They said they saw fire coming in the sky, Paul, and they watched it for days coming and got bigger and bigger. So they finally hid in the caves and in the mud. That was their words. And as they watched this come in, they hid. And when they came back out after the event, they saw the main fireball passing Earth and going back into space. But millions of pieces had hit on the top of the hills, and the mountains were on fire, and it had killed all of the large animals. Well, this happened when at the end of the Ice Age, when the woolly mammoths were killed, the same time. And that event more than likely wiped them out. It broke the ice sheet over Canada that was a mile high.
Wow.
In New York State, there was a mile high ice sheet that was broken apart by
like the glaciers.
The impacts. Yeah, it's unbelievable. The impacts hit there, but they were scattered all across the U.S. and caused but they saw it. They saw the destruction. They lived through it, and they saw the main object not impact the Earth, but go back out. And that's the way that Mr. Martin told me today. This thing is going to wrap around the sun, come around the Earth, go back to the sun, come around the Earth, and head back into deep space. And he showed the actual petroglyphs also.
And this is incredible. Incredible information. And folks at BP Earthwatch, again, go to his website, bpearthwatch.com, or check out his YouTube channel, where you'll see some great information revealed. Is Immanuel Velikovsky, who wrote the book Worlds in Collision. He kept talking about a 26,000-year cycle, and you're saying around 12,000 or so, I believe.
Well, it could be different cycles.
Could there be? I was going to ask you that. Now, that's the question. So, in other words, it's sort of like, even our moon doesn't do an exact cycle. It's like, and even the Earth around the sun isn't an exact cycle. I mean, everything kind of moves a little.
Right.
And when we're talking about Planet X, if this binary system or whatever this is, and I really appreciate the fact you said we haven't seen actual physical evidence of it yet. We haven't seen it yet. I mean, there's some people with some videos and stuff, but I mean, reality is we really can't document that we've seen it yet, but we're seeing the effects of it because of the gravitational pull on the entire solar system. The sun, right. Is this why you think the sun has been so volatile here recently? And of course, that affects our weather. So tell me, what do you think? Is the sun going to get more and more and more and more volatile, or what's the reaction?
Well, we're right. We're going into the rise of solar cycle 25. So yes, it's going to get more intense before it's over with. 11.8 years solar cycle.
Okay.
Which matches the binary twin star of our planet's orbit around the sun, called Jupiter.
Okay.
Which, by the way, the ancients Sumerians called Jupiter Nibiru,
That's
by the way.
interesting. That's very
Yeah,
interesting. Yes.
that's right. That's right. But the one of the other things that Mr. Martin mentioned today on that second loop around the sun back towards the Earth,
Okay.
this object was going to collide with our moon before it got around the Earth and was going to break the moon into pieces. And immediately, that immediately brought into my mind the moon goes dark, no
Oh,
light.
that's right. No more light. It will withdraw its shining, it says in the book
And
of Joel.
of course, the tides of our planet would be immediately affected.
Yeah, the earth.
Because the moon
Yeah.
controls the tides. But it would, he, in the images, he shows the moon being hit and breaking in half.
Now, let me ask you this question because I heard this in your video that you did on YouTube, and folks, and I recommend you go to YouTube and watch this video. It's about a 10-minute video on these graphics behind me. This graphic here looks a whole lot more normal. This is what the magnetic field looked like going around the Arctic Circle, which is here. And this is 2022, and this, you see this field, it goes all the way down. That goes all the way down to about Missouri or so in the United States, okay? If you look at this one, this is what the magnetic field looks like today. I believe this is today's field if I'm right, but it's
that's today's field.
That's today's.
The one to your left shoulder.
That's today's.
The one that's not round.
Right.
And you can go right now and look at this image on NOAA wind speed on my website. But
okay.
What it is, you're actually not looking at the magnetic field. You're looking at the Arctic vortex.
Okay.
And how that's affected by our magnetic field. You get
Okay.
your auroras and all. So what we're looking at is a shift.
Unbelievable.
Right there. That's a shift right there. And that's why it's so warm. They're not getting snow up north in Canada, the northern states, because it's moved.
It's moved
Very
unbelievable.
unusual.
There's none of this is even crossing the United States today.
Right.
Where this one in 2022 was going down all the way as far as Missouri or even, okay. So this is a huge change. And this is only 1 year. This is 1 year to date difference. Do you see this, BP, affecting us next summer with more heat, more rain, more wind? I mean, what does this do to us?
Well, you got to think about this. Right now, they're not getting the snow they need in the Canadian mountains, in Saskatchewan, places like that.
Okay.
So how will that affect crops?
A lot.
That's right. And that's going to bring the heat back up hotter. To me now, I turned 68 years old in November.
Well, happy birthday.
And I've been a lot of places, but Mississippi most of my life. And I've never seen heat like this fall. In 68 years, what I went through this year. First time in 22 years, I didn't plant a garden. And I was fortunate I had to go in for back surgery. And so I wasn't able to do it back in June. And if I had spent all that money and time in my tractor and diesel, seeds, fertilizer, I would have lost it all because everyone's garden dried up here. I have no grass.
No grass. It just burned it up.
10 acres here. I've got at least 15 pine trees in my front yard that were killed in the drought.
Wow.
And it's all over the state. And I bet you have a lot more listeners in the South that had dead pine trees besides me. It looks like a pine beetle infestation, but it's from the drought.
Wow.
And so...
there's people in the chat room saying same thing here in Louisiana. It was extremely hot. I can tell you it was brutal down here in Florida also. Just brutal. Which I know it's hot down here, but no. I asked people, I said, is it this hot? Is it July and August? They said, this is a little about 10 degrees warmer than normal. And you know this, BP, Texas had 110 degrees or higher 31 straight days the entire month of July. That's never happened in history. So,
hello.
Yeah. So there's definitely changes.
Well, Paul, I took videos. I have 2 weather stations here that have video screens. Each one of them have video screens with wind, temperature, heat index. And I've got 131 measured 2 different times on our heat index here in central Mississippi, 131 degrees.
Whoa!
I've seen 121 last year, but 131, 132 this year. That's incredible. And listen, I've got 8 huskies that aren't used to that type of heat, and their room, but they have their own room, and it has air conditioning, and I was still having to keep them in the main air conditioning in our home. But it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I've just come out of a surgery and trying to deal with all that. But I think that's exactly what's happening. What happened? What did they say in Revelation? That angel cast out his vial upon the sun and it scorched men, but they still blaspheme God.
Yep. Folks, BP Earthwatch is going to be one of our speakers in this upcoming webinar that actually Mike from around the world called for, okay? He literally said, we need this one, and we need it now. We need it in January. And go get BP Earthwatch, go get Gil Brazard, and get other folks you want to put in there. And he said, we have to have this. And so I'm going to ask you tonight if you are you need to be focused on this, because the information that you're hearing from Jesse tonight is just a very scratch the surface of the things you're going to understand that he'll bring forward as well as the other guys. And that webinar is January 26th. You want to get your ticket, just simply go over to Eventbrite. We'll have the tickets also where you'll be able to get them on our website here in a couple of days. But go over there and get your ticket so you'll be ready. We'll send you your link on Friday night, January 26th, like we always do, in your email right at 6 p.m. Eastern on the dot. And you'll be able to then binge watch all night. And I promise you'll want to know what BP's got to say in that webinar. BP, any thoughts as we're tonight? Before we let you go here, I just want to know: is there anything else that is pertinent or information you'd like to leave with these folks?
The only thing I can think of, and I'll try to make it short, is Paul. You may remember I've done a video and talked about scientists had done a model showing that Jupiter and Saturn had been pulled into the inner solar system, possibly crushing the 5th planet between Mars and Jupiter, causing the asteroid belt. Okay. They modeled it, and it's kind of where they got the ancient name Planet of the Crossing. If something happened between the Sun and Jupiter, they're binary twins. Jupiter does not orbit the Sun like the rest of the planets. The Sun and Jupiter orbit a point outside of the Sun because Jupiter is a failed gas giant that is the binary twin. But when it came in and they crushed the 5th planet, it created the asteroid belt. Now, Ceres is the largest rock in the asteroid belt, which is almost as big as a planet. And it's so big that it makes up 1/3 of the mass of the entire asteroid belt. So if you have something coming between the sun, it could hit the moon, or it comes into that area, and anything, you've got the same type objects in the Kuiper belt outside the solar system, you come in there and you start playing pinball with the asteroid belt, you're going to see what God has in store of hell to that day of the Lord. And
wow,
I think that's important to realize that we won't see that, because when you notice a lot of times when they talk about an asteroid, they saw it as it passed by on radar after the fact.
Yes.
Because if it's coming from the sun, they can't even pick it up on radar. The solar energy is so strong.
Yeah.
So we would not see it, something like that happening.
It'd be on. So in other words, it'd be up on us before we had time to react.
That's right.
Because
it wouldn't be a lot, and if they did see it, they probably wouldn't tell us.
Be no use telling us no. Matter of fact, let me just say this: Heidi's sending out emails, okay, letting people know about tonight's show, letting people know about everything that's going on. Getting, of course, warning people and begging people it's time to give your life to Jesus Christ and be saved and know you're part of the bride. But as she was sending this email out, they started shutting her down because she forgot she's using the term Planet X. Every time she uses the term Planet X, there's some censorship going on. Okay, even in emails. So and I said to myself, if it isn't real or if it doesn't make there's no problem, why worry about it? it makes me believe they know, okay, that there's something binary, a binary system that is affecting this entire solar system. And Jesus said, there'll be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, distress of nations with perplexity. The sea, the waves will be roaring. Men's hearts have failed them for the fear that's coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So something's shaking those fig trees, those fig leaves, and those figs loose too earlier than they probably should. And I don't know what it is, but we're, guys like you, BP, and Mike from the World, and Gil Brazard, and these guys, you guys are able to help us understand as much as possible, and that people should make preparations. And I think at your website you have a lot of good products for people that are preppers and those who want to prepare. So, folks, go to bpearthwatch.com and check it out. Hey, thank you.
I'm really excited to hear what Mike has to say.
All right, I am too. He'll be coming on here in a few minutes, so we'll find out what he wants to do with this drastic change of the Earth magnetic field. That's be exciting. His point on what this means, and thank you for making the video today on this subject right here, because you found it. Okay, you found it. You found it. It isn't a news article. This is not news. He didn't pull this off Drudge. He found this. Okay, and that's what you get with BP Earthwatch. So. Thank you for coming on, being a guest with us tonight. We look forward to your presentation in this webinar coming up.
Well, thank you for the invite, Paul. And I'm going to sit back and watch the rest of the show. God bless y'all.
God bless you. Thank you, brother. We love you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Joining us right now, right on time, Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing?
Pastor Paul, God bless you this evening.
Great to have you here tonight, Mike. This is incredible. We're coming down to the end of the year. Did you get a chance to hear the interview with BP Earthwatch earlier?
I did not.
Okay, that's
I think I caught just a tiny piece of it.
Okay.
At the end.
All right. Well, he is going to be on the webinar. Okay, and along with Gil Brazard, I spoke to Gil Brazard today, and he gave me a 30-minute reason that he needs to be on. I said, "Look, you don't have to convince me. I'm asking you." He's like, "Let me tell you why." Yeah, and I told him, I said, "Look, Mike mentioned both BP Earthwatch and Gil Brazard to be in this webinar, and they have both said yes, and Stan Deyo has said yes." Okay, so we're looking forward to it. So, Mike. BP brought something up. He did a video today, and I'm just going to throw it out there for you. I know you haven't had no idea what this is or how to prepare for it, but you usually don't need to. And he said that there's been a drastic change in the Earth's magnetic field from 2022 to 2023. And I'm actually going to put it on the screen and show you, and it is unbelievable. You might have a little delay, I don't know, but behind me, over my right shoulder, is 2022, and over my left shoulder is what the magnetic, vortex, which is a result of what the magnetic field is doing in 2023. I don't know if you can see it yet or not.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one right here over the right shoulder, this is 2022, and which is pretty normal, kind of normal. And this is today, 2023. It's incredible shift. I don't know what it means, but he was saying this is going to affect weather in a big way in 2024. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the polar vortices, they have property changes big time. And so the magnetosphere, we also had the biggest Great Swan event, right, in 2023. So heat displacement, the magnetosphere, changes in the ionosphere, and magma flow issues are real constant. They keep, fluctuating big time. And what that means is 2023 was the hottest year on record, right?
Yep.
The ocean temperatures, I know the land temperatures, and many people know this, for certain cities from, I believe a few were triple digits, 30 some days. Some other ones were triple digits, 46 days. The ocean temperatures were above 100 degrees, right? 45 days.
Right.
45 days in a row. Okay,
Yeah,
that's never
insane.
happened. So the entire Earth, but that's just the USA. The band around the USA and Africa became large parts of Africa. Nothing, everything abandoned in parts of Africa, right? Everything. No life was found there because it was too hot. This will increase next year. 2024 is going to continue to increase. And what we have, we have magma movements. Of course, we discuss that a lot.
Yep.
They are churning in the earth. We have a change in our magnetosphere, which is going to further affect the heat and cooling cycle of the earth.
It's going to be a lot hotter.
Right, and we because we don't have, see, the less ice you have, the less reflectivity you have for infrared. Infrared is one element. Some of that reflected heat is or the reflected sunlight going back out into space is going to be absorbed in the land. We already have galactic cosmic rays. Hopefully the sun will pick up its activity and bounce some of that back out. But then again, something is affecting the sun, causing it to emit more and more. We have more strange solar activity affecting our solar system. And all these different things are going to continue to increase temperatures in the earth, right? I know a lot of people who look at the magnetosphere. A lot of this heat can be, you can point directly to the magnetosphere for that, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, but the magnetosphere wouldn't exist without the magma. So all of it is tied together intimately. But we have too much churning of magma, and deep temp sensors and pressure sensors are off the scale, right? They put these sensors inside the earth, which feed you get temperature, you get pressure, vibrations, acoustics, and things like that. They're off the scale, Pastor Paul. And so it's only a matter of time before places, and I said this once before, I'll say it again, places that nobody has ever thinking about associated with magma are going to have magma, right? They're going to have magma problems. That includes the USA, all throughout the USA, from New York down to Texas, all the way up to California and Washington State. They're going to have problems. Canada is going to have problems. We have volcanoes all over the planet, right?
Right.
And if you think of a volcano as essentially an overflow valve for too much, pressure built up inside the earth. But here's one component that's seldom discussed. We have huge water chambers inside the earth, right? And I said this once before, but one of the water chambers holds enough water to fill up all the oceans again. Okay, so when people look at the earth, they're just not getting the scale, the sheer mass of the earth, right? They're not getting the surface compared to the crust, the ratio or the difference in size. It will blow your mind to see things in scale. Once you see it in scale, you'll understand why the ocean water represents a minute amount of water available on this planet. And they found 3 chambers so far, right? 3 chambers so far, full of, they're just internal oceans. And they're not, that's not at the core of the earth. They're right
up close.
In the scale of things are right below the surface. Well, if you go up 100,000 feet in the air, right? And if you went the opposite direction into the ground across the earth, you're still only covering a fingernail's worth of distance, right? If you were to put the earth at scale where it would fill up a room, that's a fingernail width and distance, right? So that's not, that's like 1/16 of an inch. It would take up 100,000 feet. It's not taking up that much space. So,
well, I saw today. So you're saying that magma is rising so high that
churning.
And it's moving and churning.
Yeah.
Does that affect the Earth's magnetic field also?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Because moving that molten material, right, it's going to cause magnetic field lines of force wherever it churns, right? Anything molten like that's going to have, you're going to have magnetic field lines of force. And so that's what the Earth has, right? Radiation follows those magnetic field lines back into the cores or the poles of the Earth. It essentially overcharges it, just so people understand how that system works. So all the solar radiation and galactic cosmic rays or all that radiation is redirected to the poles going inside the Earth, right? Where does it go after that? Well, it's causing heat to build up inside the Earth. That's energy. That energy is being distributed by way of magma. And the more magma heats up, the more it's going to start to melt new rock, the more earthquakes you're going to have, right?
More volcanoes too. I mean,
the higher the temperature of the oceans, right? And then hopefully volcanic eruptions like Iceland. I know that last time we talked, Iceland was, I was discussing those chambers below
yeah,
Iceland.
yeah.
What they had was not enough. That's not near enough to relieve the pressure of those chambers, right? Which means it's by no means done yet. That's what it means. It's just not enough magma. What came out of Iceland is essentially, if you had a 16-ounce Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
you just put one drop on the table. That's what
I mean,
you did.
right behind me here in this picture, if you can see it, Mike,
Right.
that is Iceland. That's when the initial
Which
eruption.
is, right. In the scale of things, though, that's like putting a drop of soda. It's like taking a 16-ounce ball of soda, right? And then you take one drop out and put it on the table. That's all the magma from the eruption.
So,
right? You got a lot more that's churned up. That's
so
ready
does that
to go.
mean that is building like mad?
It's still, in fact, here's something odd. As soon as they had that eruption, right?
Yeah.
The GPS markers on the ground went right back up again, right? So they swelled. GPS markers swelled, which means the ground went up in altitude. As soon as they had the eruption, it went down quickly and went right back up again. So that tells you there's just this much pressure built up under the ground right now. So another eruption is I hate to say it, is coming again.
You know, I mean, the people of Iceland probably don't want to hear this.
No, they don't. But it's going to happen again.
It's actually the truth. I mean, you can't.
It's going to happen again.
It's going to happen again. And okay, so let's talk about this Planet X. I mean, I know we're going to do a webinar on this, and I know you've got a ton of stuff to tell us that you can't probably say tonight on this platform, which is why we got to do a webinar, so you can be fully free to say what you want to say. But is it? I mean, obviously there's something happening here. I mean, the sun is going crazy. The other planets are off, they're being pulled off their orbit. Our planet has all these volcanoes erupting. We're breaking records with volcanoes. I mean, you gave us a bunch of dates. Heidi said, make sure you ask Mike this question, to repeat those dates again for us, because she said there's something significant he's trying to tell us. What's that about, these dates? Is it the sun? Well, tell us why.
December 17, 18, 23rd, 25th, 26th, right? January 4th, 11th, January 21, or 27, one of those dates. You're looking at forces coming into the solar system, right?
Okay.
These forces will have an effect. They're going to have an effect. They're going to have a causative effect, right? So, for example, on the 23rd, right? The sun did a little wicked thing on the 23rd.
Yep.
Right? But that's not the only thing that happened. There were some other things that happened too. It kind of coincided with that.
We just don't know what it is, or you know.
Well, yeah, I know. We'll chart it all out, but these are very real physical reactions, right? Not theoretical.
Okay.
Reactions.
Yes.
These are real physical reactions. And Pastor Ball, we're going to quickly move from talking about the possibility of some perturber coming into our solar system, and we're going to have to deal with the consequences of a perturber being in the solar system, right? Lots of people have lots of theories. I'll give an example. I know that BP Earthwatch, he knows about, he studied about Jupiter.
Right? Yes, he has.
Being somewhat of a failed star.
Yep.
He knows about Saturn. Okay. Yep. Now but that's something people are going to have to entertain, right? It's something they probably need to know about, because once you go beyond theory, you have a bunch of things that the ancient people looked at, right? They started specifically naming things. So they knew what they were doing. Now, we may have lost a bit in translation, but they recorded what took place, right? And they recorded what took place after the fact. So they weren't guessing about anything. They were trying to notate and tell future generations that something horrible took place. In fact, they've already found that certain ruins all over the world, a lot of people thought they were places of worship. They were not. They recorded an event, the same event that happened all around this planet, right? But then they started finding evidence that it happened before then, that they were talking about it as though it was ancient knowledge at a time just like we're at now, where people had theories and speculations, and then before anybody could before they could prepare, it took place, right? It
Wow.
decimated civilizations. Now, we're not talking about something that's going to just burn up a forest. No, we're talking about something that decimated civilizations where hardly anybody made it out. And
Mm.
it's about to happen again. And so,
How many years ago? How many years ago?
or you're looking at 112,000 years ago, 46,000 years ago, 26,000 years. That will vary based on whatever information people read. I go
Okay.
by a different table set, right?
Okay.
Because I was privy to see something, but that's just me. Anyway, but it's close enough to say that something repetitive
So
happened on this
that's
planet.
your point. It's a repetitive cycle,
Yeah,
and
that's right. So
there's
it's not a maybe.
it's not a
There's no
maybe.
maybe about it, right? There's
Okay.
no maybe. And if they're trying to hide anything, right? They're trying to hide a known season that is coming upon the earth. And these experts, they're not going to tell anybody anything. People should know that by now, right?
No, they're
How in the
not.
world can somebody come up with, somebody told me I came up with 6 dates concerning solar activity. 30 days, 40 days before it happened. How can somebody do that, right? But what I'm
You did.
people, these experts are not going to do that, Pastor.
No,
They're
they're
getting
not.
paid. They're getting paid to do what they do, right? So they're going to please whoever's paying them.
Right.
But when Christians have the right information, not only do they have the data points, but they have the Spirit to help them intuitively see it, right? Gilbert and Jesse, they have very specific area. They're driven. They're
Right.
passionate. They're
Right. They
driven
are.
about things. That's important in the body of Christ because the Lord put that passion in them.
Yes.
A lot of people have their opinions about everybody, but God called all of us at different stages in life. He knows exactly who we are. He didn't make a mistake calling anybody. And if
Amen.
anybody believes in Christ, God put that belief in them. They didn't make up that belief. And these guys are driven, right? They
They are.
probably don't know why they're driven like that, but they're driven. They have not given up, right?
No.
Standeo, all these guys are driven. And so just imagine what would happen when they start getting real data points. See, from this point, they've been working from historical data. They've been working from, different findings here and there. What happens when they get real data points?
Oh, they'll be all
Right, these
over
guys
it.
are going. That's right. They're going to be on it, and then the body of Christ is going to be well informed. Right? They're going to be well informed,
So you're
and
you're
which
so you're helping us get some clues to some of this, and what will happen when they get the actual data. Will they get the actual data, you think?
yeah, this year is going to be a very interesting year, Pastor Paul. They're going to
Okay.
need as much as they can get, and because the body of Christ is going to get no warning any other way, right? Other than bringing those the Lord called together and to have
Amen.
them work on that, right?
Amen.
Because again, it's going to go from theory and talking about it to people are going to be frightened. They're going to be frightened. It's things are going to happen at a very off timing, which means uh, you can almost forget preparation time, right? And then we're going to be dealing with multiple things upon the earth that will further exacerbate anybody's preparations, like war, for example, right?
Mm.
Uh, during a very a not so good time. Temperatures are going to be very high, fires sporadically starting. We're finally going to start to see the introduction of what happens when ice balls come into the atmosphere, catch on fire, right?
Right.
Uh, you know, all these different things we're going to begin to experience. The experts are going to change the narrative, right? They're going to explain it in a very specific way so they can continue what they're doing. But the Lord's people, if they're not careful, if they continue to look away from such things, right, they're gonna be shocked themselves to the point of having heart attack. Now, of course, we have to do this with great responsibility
Yes.
because basketball is going to cost a lot of lives. In this particular case, the numbers, they don't look good, right? They already have the financial layouts of casualties of certain events that will take place on the earth, which is a governmental thing, right? They already have that. Insurance companies, they have those numbers likewise. So they already have an idea of the casualty count that will build as a consequence of this, let's call it this weather change phenomena. But here's what Jesse will look at this when he hears it, but something is happening also, not just with the Earth, but the Earth is in sync with Jupiter and Saturn right now.
Right.
Now we're talking about magnetic.
In what way?
The magnetic fields,
Okay.
right? The magnetic fields, temperatures, right? And movement. Mars is also rapidly changing. The magnetic field of Mars is rapidly changing. I mean, rapidly changing, right? So we have some issues that span the solar system. Right? It's not just one. It's not just Earth. Right? It's not just us. It's everybody else too. And you could throw Venus, but Saturn and Jupiter dictate the orbit of the Earth in a large way. They're always going to be intimately tied together. So any changes in Jupiter and Saturn, and we're going to feel it here, right?
Right.
That's taking place. That is actually taking place. The orbit of Earth is altering, right? Which is no mystery, but normally it takes a lot longer for this process to finish. Normally it takes over 90,000 years for complete change in the Earth's orbit in relationship with Jupiter and Saturn. Well, no, not so. This has been happening in the last 2 years, right? So
wow.
That's a pretty hefty change.
And that's a quick change.
That's right.
Quick change.
It's kind of like the oceans, right? It's kind of like the oceans sustaining a temperature of 100 degrees for 46 days or 45 days, whatever it was. It's never done that before.
No.
Right? Never done that before. This year is going to be worse. It's going to be a lot worse. And then because Canada is dry, they're dry. They don't know what to do, Canada.
They had the worst wildfires in the history of Canada that we know of.
Right.
I mean, from one coast to the other, Mike. One coast to the other. So you're saying it's going to get worse?
Yeah, you know, heat causes high winds. High winds.
Okay.
So with the high winds we face, at some point we're going to entertain a change in the jet stream, of course. That's when the East Coast will totally dry up. If people look carefully, they're going to see that we lost too many crops this year. This year we lost crops, a lot of crops. They estimate next year, because they already have subsidies ready for this, they estimate next year we're going to lose even more than we lost this year, right? Because, I mean, nobody should be surprised if some of those wild temperatures I used to mention are seen this year, right?
And you're talking global here now. You're talking global, yeah.
All over the world, yeah. Which means we're going to have a change in atmosphere too, right? We already have a change in radiation exposure of pilots. St. Elmo's fire or particle interactions on aircraft at certain altitudes is becoming worse, which means navigation on aircrafts, electronics on aircrafts, they probably will not be able to make them robust enough. So commercial air traffic is going to be interrupted, and we simply do not have enough geoactivity to relieve the magma churning below, right? We don't have enough earthquakes. We don't have enough volcanoes, which means it's going to pop out somewhere all at one time.
You want more earthquakes. I mean, you want more volcanoes for sure, right?
Absolutely. If we had that, Pastor Paul, it would equalize the energy the Earth is absorbing versus, right, the energy that's being the output energy. But that's not what we have. We have a lot of input, very little output, right? Very little output. And so far, what we have today does not constitute enough of there's just not enough
so that
energy being released.
That creates an explosive environment then.
That's right. It's a very bad imbalance. Then you'll have places like Texas, right? Texas, where the oil fields are.
Okay.
Where certain known magma tubes will fill up in that place, right? Some people know about that burning in Texas that's been burning for the last, what, 60 years? There's another place in Utah has been burning since 42, I believe it was. And so there are problems here in the USA too. That's going to become worse because it will come close to the surface. It's going to dry out the lakes, right? All these different things will happen. And this, and with things like this presentation we're about to have, with the best, the most accurate information we can have, because we're going to have to be responsible where it comes to people actually
So
facing
you're
death,
saying
right?
this upcoming webinar on January 26th, it's critical to
Yeah.
help
Oh yeah.
help
Yeah.
inform the public the
Yeah.
best we can that of the events that are coming.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
one of the things you talked about was this behind me this asteroid environment. Okay, this.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little
Meteor
bit?
storm.
Meteor
Yeah.
storms. Yes.
I mean, listen, regardless of anybody's theory, they know we have a problem, right? In the asteroid belts, right?
Yep.
We're surrounded by some rocks that have an abrupt cutoff point, meaning something has caused that cutoff. And if anything comes into our solar system, and it will at the right plane, it's going to smack those rocks. It's going to be like a pool table. And they're all coming directly toward the sun,
Are
right?
you
A lot of them
serious? Here
will
we
come
go.
directly toward the sun.
Okay.
So see, this is what people forget. And if something hits in the upper atmosphere, right? Say we're going to get, they have a near Earth object and they say, oh, don't worry, it's well above us, well above. Well, we have a lot of satellites up there,
Oh,
right?
we do. Yes.
You hit one of those satellites, you're going to cause a chain reaction. But here's how that chain reaction is going to work. Suppose what's coming in is is a wide angled impact of one of those satellites. It hits it. It's going to hit, that satellite will hit something else in orbit. They'll begin to deorbit, right? Some will deorbit, and those will hit more. That can literally that can be a very destructive event on the surface of the planet without any additional meteorites, right? Any additional asteroids. All you have to do is hit one of those satellites, and for it to start hitting other things, they can explode those fast enough. Plus, some of these satellites have a 8-inch by 8-inch, 8-inch by 12-inch box, and if one of those boxes gets in the atmosphere, it's going to kill half the planet.
What?
Right? That's the fuel on board. It's going to kill half the planet. That's bad stuff. Which is why you have Air Force Command and you have Space Command who have the job of tracking these satellites.
Let me ask.
And they destroy as many as they can.
Is that why President Trump started the Space Force, really?
Well, no, that's not why.
Okay, I don't want to get you off track.
Because that's been an ongoing responsibility of Air Force Command.
Okay,
right?
so go back to where
and
you were
NASA
at.
and
Yeah.
JPL.
Okay.
But these are deadly objects. So when they bedazzle people saying, "Oh yes, we have a space station coming to Earth," but it won't do anything, everybody has the idea that these things are benign in nature. Not so. There's some pretty toxic things up there, and if they come in our atmosphere, it's going to kill half the planet, right? Literally half the planet's going to die if they come into the atmosphere.
Okay,
right?
let me ask you
It's
this
gonna
question
die.
because I just saw that NASA was launching some type of, I don't know what it is, a craft, a probe, a rocket, I'm not sure what it is, to help deflect or slightly try to alter the trajectory, the path of Apophis. And I just got this. Is that something they actually did? I mean, is there a reason they call it to move the God of Chaos asteroid a little bit because they're afraid it's going to get too close, that it's going to hit our.
They know it's going to go right through the keyhole and smack us, right? If anybody had to worry about that, it's going to smack us. They know it's going through the keyhole. They already know it. They knew that before it left. Yeah, they knew that before it left. But the amazing part is, out of all the junk out there, Apophis really is not going to hit anything that's going to cause it to go off track a little bit. And that's extraordinary, don't you think?
Yeah.
But at any rate,
You're saying
there
this is
we are with
worse.
that one.
Are you saying this is worse? What I'm this meteor storm that we're going to go through before we get.
Oh yeah, they spend a lot of money every single year, right? Because they know this is a problem right in their face they're going to have to deal with. And you have all these space-based commands now that have to deal with that responsibility.
Okay.
Because Pastor Paul, that's an accident. That's not if it will ever happen. That's going to happen. That's going to happen.
Which part?
Now,
which one's going to happen?
Those satellites coming in, they're going to come back, right? They're going to come back. Listen, right now, the reason why they're up in arms about things in space, the reason why Trump went ahead with Space Command. Now, remember, Space Command is Reagan's baby, right?
I know it is really.
But the need for Space Command is very high, even right now. Right, the recruitment process has been quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Development and expansion has been quiet, but they're doing it. They're doing it because China has a lot of stuff in space now, right?
Okay.
Russia has a bunch of things in space. We're not just dealing with one space station,
Okay.
right? Everybody knows about the ISS, but I'll tell you right now, there could be 4 others up there bigger than the ISS. Because they're launching rockets. You know, the USA launches a rocket every other day into space.
Well, I'm over here in Florida, and almost every other night I can watch a rocket in the sky that Elon Musk is firing into space. We just walk outside and I look when they tell us what time, and there it goes. I see it every other night. I mean, this is unbelievable. How many satellites
And
are they putting? You know,
he's essentially a payload.
he's the payload guy,
right?
Right? That's what he is.
Some of the new vehicles that they have, are quite astounding. But the point is, something is going on up there right now. If anything, if it's true that the Earth, the surface of the Earth, is about to get tore up, right? Even if people went underground, they would still have to have some type of observation post. They could not have that. They couldn't have that on the surface of the planet.
Right.
So they would have to have that in space, which means they would be working on something in space where somebody could stay up there for maybe 20 years, 20 or 30 years to observe the conditions on the surface of the planet, right? So then they would be shipping everything into space like that, correct?
Yep.
And they would have done this for many, many years. The truth is, about 2 rockets per day have been leaving Earth for about the last 30 years, somewhere around there.
So it's not just Elon Musk and SpaceX. I mean, it's the Russians, the Chinese. It's going on all over the place.
Well, yeah, but the U.S. itself launches about 2 per day.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to make that emphasis on. They're working on something which is going to make.
Wow.
I suspect that eventually, when that truth comes out, it's going to be too late for everybody else. Because if people knew about that, they would get in the way. They would demand, some sort of different oversight, and they would try to put a halt to it, right? Just like the space shuttle program. Oh, it's too dangerous. Nobody goes up. They still have shuttles going into space. They're just not, that STS built.
Right.
So anyway, there are a lot of things like that happening. But the point is, we're facing some very serious things, and my personal view is that by the time people take it seriously enough, it's going to be too late for them.
It's too late.
Right?
Right.
They're going to have zero prep time, because and that's why people in the body of Christ who are passionate about these subjects, this is it.
They know this. Okay, so you're dropping some bombs tonight, and he's sending some. I think you're sending some messages out to some of you guys like BP and Gil Brazard and Stan Dale and others that, hey guys, stay on top of what you're doing, because stay passionate, because this is it. I mean, it's coming down.
I can almost guarantee you that Stan Dale knows.
I know he does.
He already knows.
Yeah, he's
I can almost guarantee you that.
He's former FBI, and he's got contracts on all this EMP shields to protect the people and the grids and everything. He's got yeah. Obviously, he knows. Like let me ask you this: maybe I can draw some of that out of him when I interview him in this webinar. He's like you. He really wants the people to know. He really wants the people to know, so that they can protect their families and prepare their lives and their souls with God, because of the times we're in. Mike, let me ask you, and I don't want to jump subjects here, but we have to talk about the war a little bit. I mean, North Korea is threatening. North Korea is threatening now to get the nukes ready, get everything ready. Should we take this serious?
Always take North Korea serious, even though nobody's paid attention to him for a while. Nobody has. And so sometimes, they come up with that stuff. So they say, hey, we're still over here. Can we start some trouble so people can look at us? But on a serious note, at some point, I think that some of the coordinated happenings of both China and North Korea are going to be seen, right? Now, Kim Jong-un has the ability to hit the U.S.
Yeah.
Any part of the USA, including Alaska. They already have that ability.
Know. I mean,
they have that ability. They have it. They do have a pass-off CNC or command and control system, which means they can essentially become the launch pad for China or the launch pad for Russia or the launch pad for Iran.
Oh,
right?
So you just named three. That's huge.
Forget.
So they become the decoy. But at the same time, they're not a decoy. They can become the launch pad for China, Russia, or Iran. Okay.
That's right. In today's combat scenarios, it used to be if somebody launched a nuclear weapon, right, then you'd find out where it was going, find out its trajectory, and then you hit that nation back to totally obliterate that thing, right? Mutually assured destruction. In these days, we actually have the weaponry to nullify a lot of that nuclear warhead, right? We can nullify it. So if you get it early enough, you can nullify it. What the enemy does not want to do is be vulnerable to some of these countermeasures, right? They don't want to fire off too early. Then everybody's paying attention to one spot, or you have the Northern Pacific Command out there and things of that nature, and they just go ahead and take it out. They want to get one off in a time of confusion. So I'll tell you something. It's a known fact that at any point, if the USA is heavily distracted, if they can cause some sort of internal issues, turmoil, something like that, that would start to affect the morale of troops and officers, so on and so forth. They're going to go for it. At the moment the USA is weak, they're going to launch that very moment, right? They're going to launch. And it's also a known fact that if Iran right now had the full cooperation of Russia, right? They would launch a nuclear weapon at the U.S., whether we saw it or not.
Who would do this?
They would. Iran.
Oh, wow.
They already know that. That's why they're willing. See, sometimes an enemy can be such an enemy that the only way to actually deal with that individual, right, to save lives, is to keep a deal going somehow, keep them occupied. That's the truth, because you're dealing with people who are ruthless. And if you can remember what some of these young guys from Hamas did to some of these people of Israel, right? That's nothing compared to what some of these special Iranian guard folks would do to anybody else, right? We're talking about people who are from the age of 6. They go into a military camp. They are hardened. Battle hardened. Their whole life is spent fighting, right? Even the Mossad does not want to deal with these folks. Delta operators, nobody wants to deal with these folks.
You're saying the Iranians take 6-year-old boys.
Yes, they do.
And start the process of brainwashing and abusing and hardening them for such a time as this.
And we're talking about hardened to the point where listen, I'll give you one thing. These guys drown every 3 months. They're mandated to drown every 3 months. I mean, they bring them back, but they drown every 3 months.
That's brutal.
Well, that goes on in most special operations. Has some sort of technique where a soldier is made to not think about death at all. And you have to get a person over the fear of death itself. So the best way to do that is to drown them. And that happens everywhere. But in Iran's case, they do it every 3 months. We're talking about hardened people who nobody wants to deal with, right?
Are you serious?
People who are unlike any other folks out there, right? It's kind of like some of the rock soldiers, Vietnam or something like that. These guys are These guys are something else. And you don't want to tangle with them. You don't want
That's
them as a prisoner.
insane.
You can't even take those guys prisoner. You can't do it. The only thing you can do with those guys is kill them. There's nothing else.
There's no other
They're not going to
option. There's
negotiate
no
or
other
anything else,
option,
right?
is there? Because
So
you
that's
could,
how they are.
so you could waterboard them all you want. They don't. They're
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That they're trained to. They know what death is, right? They know what it is, and they don't care. So imagine 600,000 people like that.
600,000. Wait,
Yeah,
wait.
just
That's a
imagine
big
that.
number. That's a big
Yes, it is.
number.
Yes, it is. Why do you think no one has gone into Iran? And Iran has not really committed anything
You know,
against any enemy that came in there.
you know, Mike. Now I've been interviewing you for about 10 years now, and you have consistently told us that the Iranian technology, the Iranian soldier, the Iranian mentality is more brutal and stronger than really any other nation in the world. Would you agree that that's what you've been saying?
Yeah.
Wow. So are they the head of the caliphate? I know Erdogan runs his mouth over there at Turkey, but would you say that, because look at all the proxies that they're funding, Houthis, you know, Islamic Jihad, Hamas, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, that bunch over there, Al Shabaab. You know, they fund all these people. So are they really the head of the caliphate?
Well, you know, last time Erdogan spoke, who was he placating? Who was he?
I think he was placating
speaking.
Iran. I think he was.
Right. He actually he voices the same sentiment that Iran has every single time.
Wow.
Right. It's almost like Iran. Every time Iran has some sort of mindset towards some place. Right.
Yep.
Turkey speaks up. Saudi Arabia spoke up.
Yep.
There's the exact same thing. The Iranians had their mindset on. Saudi Arabia is backing, right? They're backing.
Yep.
They're trying to make friends with the Houthis, and they're going to reestablish their little covenant with these groups out there, right? So the entire paradigm out there is coming into focus, or you could say rapidly changing. But and then Biden, of course, is stalling Israel.
Yes, he is.
In my opinion, because all this started back in the Gulf War. When Saddam Hussein launched a Scud missile at Israel.
Yep.
The U.S. spent approximately 9 hours talking to Israel to talk them down, because Israel said one more Scud missile launched at Tel Aviv, and we're going to level. Iraq is not going to exist anymore tonight. And they have the power to back that up. And so the USA talked them down, right? But many have the opinion that they should leave Israel alone. Let Israel defend herself, right?
Yes.
Now we're running out of things. We're running out of leverage is what's happening, Pastor Paul. The
Yeah,
USA
I noticed that.
for the moment. Well, because they had a fuel delivery. They had their
What do you
fuel
mean?
deliveries,
Fuel
and that's the
delivery.
biggest one. Well, Israel can't fly without a fuel delivery,
Okay.
right? And they get a lot of their fuel from us.
Okay.
So they can't, but they already had that. So they're fueled up, they're ready to go. The only threat that we really have is a cutoff fuel and munitions delivery, especially munitions
that's big.
and fuel.
Munitions.
We have an ammo dump there too. There's some underground places. Israel is a hornet's nest, number one. Nobody should really mess with Israel. They really shouldn't.
No, but they are.
But yeah, they are. And Israel's been quite reserved. They have, even though this war is awful. It is awful because death is death, period.
Yeah.
It is. But this whole thing, we can see what's going to happen. They're going to disarm. Israel's going to have to go through some sort of disarmament thing. But Israel's not going to go for that. We already know that, right? So what happens next is the showdown, the actual showdown. An ultimatum is coming.
Okay. Is it coming from the U.S. or the United Nations or both?
It's going to have to come from the UN plus everybody else.
Okay.
Right? So it's going to be a unified ultimatum.
Yep.
And Israel's going to be put on the spot. Now, at that point, they can either fold or fight. Right? I personally do not believe that the Middle East is going to wait for an answer. I don't. Because right now, the back channels they're just filled up with communications. Constant. This only happens in when they're doing these larger scale things like the Gulf War and things like that. So nobody has ever seen the communication chatter this high on back channels, right?
Wow.
So from Yemen all the way up to Turkey, these guys coordinating something rapidly, right? North Korea is involved too. Maybe North Korea is being used to get some attention away from something momentarily, but
Okay.
something big is happening. Something big is happening already. Erdogan has already sent some orders out to his troops. Okay, that's unusual. Over what? For the sake of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is now, they're taking up a position, right? So
Yep.
that's
That's
and they
different.
are.
That's different than we've seen.
That's real different. That's real
Yeah.
different. And when the world sees this, then what? That's going to put Netanyahu in a very bad place, right? So we know.
Today he was supposed to meet with his war cabinet, and he did. He sat down with them. Got a phone call from from Joe Biden, and Biden basically wanted him to release $275 million worth of tax revenue that Israel collects in the imports and exports and tourism and all that goes to the Palestinian Authority, which they distribute among the people there and in Gaza. And a lot of those are terrorists. And Israel decided not to release that money. And Biden basically said, release the money. Okay? So they had a 7-hour confrontation, back and forth phone calls for 7 hours, in which Netanyahu still refused to release the money, but he had to cancel his war cabinet meeting. And what the war cabinet meeting had to do with who's going to rule Gaza once this war is over. The UN wants to rule it. The UN and with some peacekeeping troops, along with some Arab troops and maybe some U.S. troops, want to put up a buffer zone between. It's a two-state solution. And so you can hear the pushback by Netanyahu. I'm not letting the money go when I'm in a war. So having said that, I mean, is this thing coming to a head with the U.S.? Is the U.S. going to side with the UN against Israel? And what will Israel do? I mean, do you think we're going to side with the UN at some point here?
Unfortunately, with politics, right? They're going to side with the popular view of the world.
Well, that's the UN.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there we go. And the UN is going to demand that they're going to position themselves right there smack dab in the middle of Jerusalem.
Yeah, yes, they are.
They're going to take Jerusalem. Last year, it was almost like they handed Jerusalem over to other folks last year, right? This year, it's almost like they're implementing what they planned last year. And so it's just going to be that,
Mike,
the world has not seen this before. The world's not seen this before.
You've been in the Middle East, all over the Middle East. I know you have.
Yes.
And I've been 11 times to Israel. Let me just say this. The last time I was there, which was this year in February, I took those 57 people, and God told me, I'm giving you a window. You better get them in because this window is short. And now I know what he meant. I said this many, many times. There's a window, there's a window, there's a window. Okay, now we know it was. But when I was there in February with the tour group I had, and I stayed an extra week after they left, there was so many UN vehicles. I can tell you, I can't even tell you how many times I seen United Nations vehicles around Jerusalem, up on the Mount of Olives, over in Mount Scopus, over in the Galilee. They were everywhere. So when you said the UN is already there, they really are. They're everywhere, and they're not there to assist the Israelis. They're there as a conference. They're an adversary to the Israelis because they're supporting the Palestinian movement. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not joking, am I? I'm not making this up, am I?
No. And again, they have to go with the worldview. They're going with the worldview here, so which leaves Israel, right, by themselves, essentially. And it's almost like a big isolation event. It's unfortunate. It's happening in our time. But, this will be the beginning of some things to know. Isn't it Erdogan that's going to announce he's going to chair a brand new, I might as well say affiliate in the Middle East. He's supposed to chair it. I believe that's coming up too. So he'll be in charge
Wow.
of that.
Wow, I didn't know this.
That
Now,
cooperative. So I think we're going to see a lot of things unfold. It'll be different, right? But it'll be quite aggressive by Middle Eastern components.
now does Russia, what do we do with Russia? Ukraine?
Russia's there. Russia's
Is it going to go away in
the Middle East.
2024? Is this thing going to end or no?
No, no, because no. I think that I really do think that Russia, based on what the U.S. does, right? Because if the U.S. pulls or draws down funding of the Ukraine, that's a signal to Russia to go ahead and do the rest of what they have to do, right? I think, now they talk rhetoric on television and throughout articles to appease the populace because they don't want marches all in the streets of America, and that's what they're trying to avoid. That's the number one priority, is don't fuel any protests in America, right? That's the number one objective here. But what's happening is people are slowly agreeing that the Ukraine is not beneficial. It's just not beneficial. And so that sentiment's going to get
means
heavier
it's not
and
worth
heavier.
it. It means it's not worth
When they pull it, that's almost a direct sign to Putin to make you move now. Go ahead and do what you have to do, and we'll deal with the consequences later. But then you have the Middle East. This deal with the Middle East and this anger that will come against Israel when they slow down. Israel does, Pastor Paul. Everybody ought to get ready for this. The world is going to turn like a vicious dog, both in voice, demonstration, and otherwise, against Israel, saying Israel can never have the power to slaughter anybody again. Because, believe it or not,
they're going to disarm
Christians, right? Christians believe one way, right? We all see what's happening one way.
Right.
But the world, all they see is Israel slaughtering innocent people like dogs. That's what they see. That's what they see. Right. And so that's what they're going to act on. The UN is going to act on this popular view, and they're going to do what they do by force. They're going to do it. And if they have to get rid of certain people, it's unfortunate, but this is how dirty the game can get. Right.
America will fold. In other words, Biden will fold. He will succumb to the United Nations and the European Union and Emmanuel Macron and Erdogan and whoever else is involved, and maybe even the Vatican. And Israel will be all alone, just like the Bible said in Joel chapter 3. And so what do you think? Is that at that moment, does Israel then just say, well, whatever, we're still holding the ground, or do they have to then part the land, go into negotiate their way into a different position?
No, that's not going to be by peace. Israel's not going to part that land. They're not going to give it up. That's not going to be by peace. That's going to be by force.
By force.
That's going to take bloodshed. They're not going to negotiate the parting of that land. It's going to take bloodshed. And what's so strange is this. This event in the Middle East is happening at the same time that we have this global disruption in temperatures, which is a telltale sign, of, and the sun also, the sun and the earth, Saturn and Jupiter, right, is a telltale sign that something external is affecting us, right? Now, a lot of people have opinions on what that is, but we're being affected externally. At the same time, this thing is happening in the Middle East, and it just so happens to be at the same time we have presidential candidates who are well up in age, right? That's starting to stir another sentiment among the people, because young people, right? Young people are starting to rise up and say, no, we can't have this. We can't. I'm telling you what they're doing. It's almost like everything in the U.S. is starting to change rapidly. And these young kids are coming up, right? I say young kids, maybe in their 30s or something like that. And they're saying we don't need either one of those two. We don't need them. Right. So if I were anybody out there, I would not be surprised if this whole thing takes a turn so fast. Right. I mean, so incredibly fast that we end up with someone we can't even identify with. Right. I'm talking about us, the seasoned folks, Christians. We're not going to be able to identify with this. And by the way, all this stuff is against Christianity. All of it is. So, if indeed all this happens at one time, what are the chances that all this would happen at the exact same time or the exact
Prophecy.
same
This has got to
season?
be the end
There you go.
times,
And I like
right?
that one scripture where it says when you the generation that sees all these things come to pass, that generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So
Wow.
if you begin to see all these things, right? The
Yep.
generation that sees all
All these
these little
things,
elements coming, not one or two, but all these
all of
elements,
it,
then it says that the giveaway in that scripture to me is that this generation, that generation, it says,
shall
shall not
not pass
pass till
away.
all
Be
of it be
fulfilled.
fulfilled, which means they begin to notice all of it, but all of it does not pass while they're seeing it. And so that generation that notices that generation is the one where everything ends with. And it just so happens that at this time we have the internet and we have networking and communication in such a
Amen.
way that
Amen.
anybody can see everything on the face of the earth.
Amen.
That did not exist. That didn't exist 12 years ago,
No,
right? Not
no,
like this.
not like
Not like this.
this.
We can see in space and the land and people's homes and
Yep.
everywhere
Yep.
with a push of a button. So everybody's made aware of global events. And that's my point I'm making. Everybody is aware of global events. Even some
This,
of the tribes they found this year, Pastor Paul, that had never seen a helicopter. They never saw an aircraft, right? They were throwing spears at the helicopter because they never saw a helicopter
Papua New
before.
Guinea, where's this at?
One of those islands off the out there near Indonesia.
Indonesia. Okay.
But those people have been reached. That was at the beginning of the year,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Those people have been reached. They have touched. One scientist said they have touched every landmass on the planet, right? Every landmass on the planet has been touched,
Okay,
and the people
Jesus
have been reached.
Jesus spoke these words 2,000 years ago. Here we are today. Now here we are. Everybody, we can see everything. We're all connected. We have the internet. We have television. We have all the different capability of communication. We are that generation that Jesus
Yep.
spoke about. We have to be. There's no other
Yep.
question. So, and we got this incoming mass, whatever this is, this shaking the heavens, shaking the planets, the asteroids, the sun's volatile, the earth is roaring, the seas, the magma's rising, the wickedness. We didn't even talk about that. The woke agenda, the wicked abominations being performed and paraded around. I mean, at the end of the day, wars, rumors of wars, the parasites, the pandemic, the pathogens. We've never been here before. I mean, it's all here now, Mike. So
Yep.
is 2024, in your opinion, and you've given us some dates, but is this year, is this a year like never before, 2024? Do you see this like a year like never before? Do you
Oh
think
yeah.
World War III could happen? Do you think nuclear detonation could happen? Do you think another pandemic could happen? What's your thoughts?
Pastor Paul, I'll tell you this: a nuclear weapon has already been used against people, and no one went anywhere save those who got hit by that nuclear weapon, right?
No, I don't know.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Okay, yeah,
Right?
1945.
So a nuclear weapon
Right.
has been used. And I think a
Yes.
mistake that sometimes people think a nuclear weapon means everybody is killed. No, that's not what it means.
No.
But it does mean contaminants of the earth, right?
Yeah.
I do believe that at some point, now this year is going to break all records. I do believe that. I also believe
What do
it's
you
going
mean,
to
break all
deviate.
records of what?
Well, any area that you look at is going to break all
Okay,
records.
I agree with that.
We actually have a social problem, right, in the USA and all around the world. Europe is starting to crumble at the seams. The UK, right, is starting to change their mind on how they don't support. They're not supporting the US like they did.
No,
Neither is Europe.
No,
So it seems like everybody is turning their back not only on Israel
but on
USA.
USA. Oh,
see, the only thing now keeping us afloat is that we are the police for the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But everybody has gotten pretty wise, and they're saying, hey, if we take the USA out of the picture, we can establish what we want to establish. You know that scripture where it says, when they say peace and safety. Well, in order for them to say that, that means, hey guys, our plan worked. If they say peace and safety, then their plan worked, right? Then sudden destruction will come. And again,
right.
we are in an intersection. We're at a a big crossroads right now.
Oh,
I'll
it
say
sounds
across
like
an
that's
intersection of events.
So you think that solar eclipse that God is sending on April the 8th, you think that's by accident that we're at the crossroads, or is this another one? Is this another one of the
Look,
signs of the?
we're living by his calendar, right?
Yes,
His
we
calendar.
are. Yes, we
And
are.
I certainly don't believe in coincidences. And we didn't even mention some of the well, we don't have to mention that. I believe
But
that people
what?
are going to have enough to deal with without this other stuff.
Well,
Well,
wait.
Pastor
Go
Paul,
ahead and
I hate to.
mention it. Go ahead. We got a couple of minutes.
We broke records in something else,
What's
right?
that?
I'm going to use that word paranormal activity or demonic activity has
Hello.
increased 900. I believe they said 980% since the beginning of the year. So that's a
Paranormal
huge problem.
activity. Are you talking
Yep.
demonic?
Now, but look. More and more schools have been shut down, right? Because of stuff happening in broad daylight in front of children, right? People in their homes are being wounded. See, it used to be scared. People get scared by stuff, but now people are getting wounded. The crazy places are filling up because
Yeah.
people can't make heads or tails of it. There are certain places, their police force is overwhelmed with calls because of weird stuff like that, paranormal stuff. And we're talking about people that are being wounded. This one guy, in fact, it happened overseas. It happened in the USA. It happened in Germany, in the UK, and Canada. It looked like they got bit by a serpent on the shoulder, and it left two bite marks, right? Big, huge bite marks with a circle around it, with 3 lines in there, just three lines in there. Each one looked like they had been bitten by a serpent or some sucker thing. Each one. So you have these events like this happening. I think that's a consequence of people of an alternate, a hybrid type gospel that has infiltrated the earth, because people really believe right now. There's no shame to them, Pastor Paul. They believe that they can do anything they want, and all they have to do is say Jesus, and they're okay. Well, I got news for you. Even Satan can say Jesus, so can demons, and they know exactly who he is, but they don't believe in him. And I hate to tell people this, but if people don't agree with this gospel, they don't believe in Christ, because Christ is his gospel. And you have a lot of people who they don't agree with the principles of his gospel, Pastor Paul, which makes folks like yourself critical in this hour. I mean, critical in this hour, because there's too many people out there compromising.
You're right. I got breaking news, Mike, just hit. CNN just reported, as well as other news networks, Maine's top election officials has just removed President Donald Trump from the state of Maine's 2024 primary ballot, and a shock decision based on the 14th Amendment of an insurrection ban. Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows paused her decision pending on a potential appeal in the state court, which Trump's team said they intend to file. But the decision makes Maine the second state to disqualify the former president of the United States from office after the Colorado Supreme Court handed down its own stunning ruling that removed the president from their ballot earlier this month. The development is a significant victory for the critics of President Trump, who they say was responsible for the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, and they say they're trying to enforce a constitutional provision that is designed to protect the country from anti-democratic insurrections. Now, it's obviously the Trump people are going to appeal, and it's all going to wind up at the Supreme Court. Will the Supreme Court, Mike from around the world, will the Supreme Court's John Roberts, nobody's talking about him, but I bring him up right now, will he even, because I'm not going to wait around and say, well, let's see how they rule. No, you don't understand how it works. Roberts decides whether or not you even hear it. I'm going to ask this question. Will the Supreme Court Supreme Chief Justice John Roberts, will he even address this, or is he going to push this back on the states and say whatever the states want to do? What are your thoughts?
Well, I know in a couple states, this is not the end of that. It's going to come up a few more times, right?
Right.
He will handle that based on what he can actually live with, I guess you could say, right? So he might actually say something on this.
He's going.
He might actually say something.
He's got to push one way,
but
he's got to do.
He might actually.
If he says we're not even going to hear it, It don't matter what it don't matter what the court thinks. If he says, we're not going to hear this, this is the state's problem, he takes the pressure off himself and he puts it all back on the states. And there's 17 states.
Yeah, it's coming back at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll come back at some. But this guy is. I tell you what, Pascal and everybody out there.
You laughed about it.
At this point.
Yep.
We have to try and because it's almost like a ploy in it. It's almost like a ploy. It won't go away. This prosecution of
Trump
President Trump, they have this, and it's not going away. But people have to be careful not to let it take away from their day. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Don't let it ruin
They have
your
made
day.
up their minds what they want to do. For God's children, anybody who's God's child, he's going to fight their battle.
Yep.
Right? He's going to fight their battle. So if anybody belongs to Christ, they're not left alone.
Nope.
He's got them. He's got them all the way to
So
the
in other
end.
words, you're saying Trump's not your Messiah. If he gets pushed out, the Supreme Court don't hear it. He gets convicted in 4 different trials, and they just say he isn't going to be a part of the plan. You don't drop your head and feel it's not, because Jesus is our Savior. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Plus, I know that. Listen, I've seen so many situations where people have tried to attain a position, and it looked like evil was at work, right? But I'll tell you something, Pascal. Had they gotten that position, they would have died in that position, right? So sometimes a situation will look to us one way, but it's absolute deliverance another way. So we have to be very trusting in all that we look at and stay Christ-centric.
Amen.
And then we'll see. Because the outcome, these guys are not giving up.
This is why I haven't been, and some of you have been watching me for years, I haven't been passionate at all about this issue. Because Jesus is our Savior. Jesus is the answer. And God said he's the one that puts kings into position. There's no need for us to get too off track and get all emotional and wreck and ruin your day. Look, God isn't left. Jesus said, I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you.
That's right.
So whether Trump is here or whether he's not or whoever's there, Haley, or whether it be DeSantis or whether it be Biden a second term, or it don't matter. It don't matter. Oh, yeah, it matters to all of us what we want to see happen, but it doesn't matter with our relationship with God through Jesus Christ. He won't forsake us. That's what I think you're saying, Mike.
That's right.
That's what you're trying to get across.
He's got us. He's got anybody who belongs to him. We're in good hands. We just have to make sure we don't stumble,
Yep.
And because people can be compromised behind this.
Amen.
And they,
I'm just reporting the news tonight. It happened within the hour. I'm just being the guy throwing it out there for you guys.
That's
so
something.
You know, but yeah, it's
the stone steps still won't go away.
Oh my! I was getting ready to ask you, and the stone steps, they're not going to go away. We're going to see your vision. Apparently, we're going to see your vision come to pass, Mike.
I don't want to see it.
I know
Lord
you
knows
don't.
I don't want to see it.
I don't either.
I don't want to see it.
I don't want you to be right, because it ain't about whether you're right or wrong, but you've seen it. And
I have no choice. I have to deal with it.
I know.
Everybody else can blow it off, but I'm stuck. I have to deal with it.
You got to deal with it.
I've been down this road a couple times,
Mike,
and that's not a good time.
No, Mike, this has been a powerful show. I just want to say it's I say this a lot of times, but it's one of the best shows. But they're all great. But I just really thank you coming tonight. I thank BP Earthwatch for coming on earlier. For those of you who missed him, you got to go back and watch the first part of this show if you missed it, because he was incredible. And both of these guys are going to be a part of this unbelievable webinar that's coming up January 26th, along with Gil Broussard, along with Stan Dale, along with Rex Bear now, who just confirmed, and Heidi. Heidi's going to take the ancient scripts and how they talked about a solar flash.
Yeah.
Mike, you've heard about that, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have.
I
have a grandfather that's
Go ahead.
I have a grandfather that's 100%. I can't, but he's 100% something. And he used to tell me things like that when I was little.
Is he 100% Native American?
Something.
I won't say.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I just can't tell you what 100%, but he used to tell me things like that, right? He used to cover subjects like that.
So you've heard this
but
before.
ironically, he was one of those where he was trying to, I don't know, he was kind of torn, right? But then he had a responsibility among those of his peers. He did. He was a good guy. He believed in Christ first and foremost.
Praise God.
He really did. And I thought that was
Was he
awesome.
Native?
But
So I'm not. I'm gonna. Okay, I am going to ask you. So was he Native American who had some understanding of some ancient stuff that we didn't know?
yeah, he did have some good understanding of some
Okay.
ancient things. He
Okay.
really did. And yeah. So anyway,
All right.
the flashes, right?
Yep.
Heard about that historically. Heard about that.
Okay.
And,
So Heidi's onto
yeah.
something here.
Yes, she is, because in most, well, that leads to a lot of things, but it's relevant because
Okay.
I think the Native Americans here had to deal with the fallen also. I really do believe that they had
Oh
to deal
yes.
with them. They had to
Oh
deal with
yes. Hey, they wrote about huge
Yeah.
giants in Ohio and Indiana and Pennsylvania. I
Yeah.
mean, the Native Americans, they said there was huge. Matter of fact, those mounds, we have found skeletons before the Smithsonian Institute come in and took them all away, and we never seen them again. Yeah.
Yeah, there are two monuments in the USA. One
Okay.
looks like a tree stump, right? But there's something sitting inside that tree stump, right in front of everybody's face.
Midwest? Are we in the Midwest here?
That's
Oh.
at they'll find it.
We'll talk about it. Okay.
They'll find
Okay.
it. They'll find it. That's a
That's
pretty good
another
subject, but
webinar. That's another
there's something sitting in
webinar.
there.
Okay, Mike.
There's something sitting in there.
All right,
It's
we're going to
fun.
talk about that. I want to try to
Yeah.
get you to help us on that. Okay, guy, Mike, thank you so much for being here tonight. Great broadcast. Thank you for sharing with us. It's very serious topics, very serious situations, and
Yeah, it
Jesus is,
Yeah.
as you know and as you have said many times, Jesus is the only way. Let's look to Him. Thank you,
He
Mike.
sure is. Pastor Paul, is always an honor. God bless you.
The honor is mine. Believe me. Trust me. It is. God bless you, brother.
All right.